How much longer will you let them break you? Enough. My wife Sarah and I had been married for 6 years when everything finally came crashing down like a poorly welded joint under too much pressure. When we first met at a buddy's backyard barbecue in the summer of 2018, I thought she was the most beautiful woman who'd ever looked twice at a guy like me. She had this incredible smile that could light up a whole room and seemed genuinely interested in getting to know the real me, not just making polite conversation about the weather or whatever game was on TV. I was a certified welder at Maritime Steelworks, pulling down around 65 grand a year, working on commercial ships and oil rigs. Good, honest work that left me tired at the end of the day, but proud of what I'd built with these hands. Nothing glamorous or Instagram-worthy, but solid and dependable. The kind of work where you can see exactly what you've accomplished when you clock out, where your skill with a torch and your understanding of metallurgy actually matter in the real world. I specialized in underwater welding for ship hull repairs, the kind of dangerous technical work that most people can't even imagine doing. Descending 30 feet below the surface in full gear, working with live electrical equipment while fish swim past your mask, creating perfect seams that have to hold against thousands of pounds of water pressure. It's work that demands absolute precision and nerves of steel. One mistake, and you're not just ruining a project, you're potentially killing yourself or your crew. She worked as a sales manager at Premier Motors, selling BMWs and Mercedes to rich folks who spent more on a car than most people made in 2 years. She seemed impressed by my work ethic and the fact that I could actually fix things when they broke instead of just throwing money at problems. When her kitchen faucet started leaking our second week of dating, I showed up with my toolbox and had it running perfectly in 20 minutes. She kissed me right there in her kitchen and said she'd never met a man who could actually solve problems with his hands. We got engaged after a year of dating and tied the knot the following spring in a ceremony that was mostly her friends and family from the dealership. My crew from the shipyard came through, but they looked pretty out of place among all the suits and designer dresses. Guys like Tommy Rodriguez, my welding partner, who showed up in his one good suit that he'd worn to his daughter's quinceañera. Big Mike Patterson, our crane operator, who kept asking if they had beer instead of champagne. These were real men who worked with their hands, who understood the value of honest labor, but they might as well have been aliens among Sarah's crowd. Should have paid more attention to that contrast, honestly. But I was head over heels and figured love could bridge any gap. I thought Sarah appreciated the stability I offered, the fact that I showed up every day and did my job and brought home a steady paycheck without drama or uncertainty. Looking back now with the clarity that only comes after you've been completely betrayed and had to rebuild from scratch, the warning signs were there from day one. I just chose to ignore them because I was in love, or at least what I thought was love at the time. It started small, the way poison always does. A comment here about my work boots being too dirty for one of her company events. A joke there about how I needed to upgrade my image to fit in with her successful friends. Little suggestions that I should lease a newer truck instead of driving my paid-off 2015 Ford F-150 because it didn't send the right message to her clients who might see us together. The truck was a sore spot from early on. It was a reliable workhorse that I'd bought used and maintained myself, changing the oil every 3,000 miles, replacing parts before they failed, keeping it running smooth and strong. It had 200,000 miles on it, but it started every morning and had never left me stranded. To me, it represented everything good about buying quality and taking care of what you own. To Sarah, it was an embarrassment that advertised to the world that we weren't as successful as we should be. By year 4, those comments had gotten sharper and more public. She'd criticize my choice of restaurant when we went out with her work friends, saying places that served actual food instead of tiny portions with fancy names were too blue-collar for her crowd. She wanted me to lease a brand new truck, something flashy and expensive that we honestly couldn't afford on our combined income, even with her commission checks from selling luxury cars to people who had more money than sense. When I explained the financial reality and showed her the numbers on paper, she'd accuse me of being cheap or not caring about how we looked to other people. The money fights became a constant background noise in our marriage, like a piece of machinery that's about to fail but keeps grinding along, getting louder and more concerning every day. We had joint accounts, which seemed normal for a married couple trying to build something together. But I started noticing money disappearing faster than it should have based on our actual expenses. I'd deposit my entire paycheck every 2 weeks, and within days there'd be charges for hundreds or thousands of dollars that I couldn't account for. My paycheck would hit the account on Friday, and by Monday there would be mysterious charges that Sarah always had explanations for, but never seemed to discuss with me beforehand. Sarah always had explanations ready when I asked. New work clothes that were required for client meetings. Expensive dinners that she had to pay for up front and get reimbursed later through the dealership. Team-building events and networking opportunities that were investments in our future. I trusted her completely at that point, so I didn't push too hard for receipts or detailed explanations. I figured she understood her job better than I did. And if she said these expenses were necessary, then they probably were. What I didn't know was that she'd maxed out several credit cards in her own name, cards I had no idea existed until much later. She was spending money like we were millionaires while I was the one actually paying our mortgage, utilities, groceries, insurance, and her car lease on that white BMW SUV she drove around town like some kind of crown jewel. Our relationship had become something I barely recognized. We hardly talked, except when she needed money or wanted me to do something for her. Our bedroom had been cold for months, maybe close to a year. She'd push me away whenever I tried to get close, saying she was tired or stressed from work, or that she had an early meeting the next morning. But then, I'd see her social media posts out at clubs and fancy bars until 3 in the morning, full of energy and life. Just not for me. Never for me anymore. Photos of her laughing with friends at expensive restaurants, videos of her dancing at places I'd never heard of, check-ins at wine bars that charge $30 for a single glass. All this energy and enthusiasm that somehow evaporated the moment she walked through our front door. I felt like a ghost in my own house, a walking ATM that occasionally got lectured about not being ambitious enough or successful enough for her lifestyle. The worst part was coming home from a 12-hour shift at the shipyard, covered in metal dust and exhausted from precision work that demanded absolute focus, only to find her getting ready to go out with friends who had never worked a physically demanding day in their lives. But the real breaking point came 3 weeks before her 32nd birthday last October. She told me about this dinner she was planning with her friends at an upscale steakhouse downtown called the Iron Works. Made it sound like I was actually invited, like she wanted me there to celebrate with her and her closest friends. She even touched my arm the way she used to when we were dating, back when her touch meant actual affection instead of manipulation, or the prelude to asking for money. She said it would mean everything to her if I came, that it wouldn't be the same without me there. I said yes immediately because I was still desperately trying to save our marriage, still hoping we could somehow fix whatever had broken between us over the years. I even started planning what I'd wear, thinking maybe this was finally the olive branch I'd been waiting for. Then, exactly 2 weeks before the dinner, I came home early from the shipyard. We'd finished a major hole welding job ahead of schedule, and my foreman had cut us loose around 2 in the afternoon. There's something satisfying about completing a challenging project early, especially one involving the kind of precision underwater work that most people can't even comprehend. I was in a good mood, thinking maybe Sarah and I could grab an early dinner together for once. As I walked into our house, I could hear Sarah's voice coming from the living room. She was texting someone, and I could hear the constant notification sounds going off like a machine gun. The rapid-fire pinging should have been my first clue that something was wrong. Nobody gets that many messages in quick succession unless something dramatic is happening. I was about to walk in and say hello when I heard her laugh in a way that made something cold crawl up my spine. Something cruel and mocking that I'd never heard before, not in 6 years of marriage. It was the kind of laugh that made my welding instincts kick in, the same feeling I get when I hear a piece of equipment making a sound it shouldn't make, warning me that something dangerous is about to happen. He actually thinks he's invited for real, Sarah was saying into her phone, apparently on speaker with someone. Like, actually invited with food ordered for him and everything. Can you believe how pathetic that is? A woman's voice came through the speaker, laughing along. I recognized it immediately as her sister Jessica. Are you seriously going to let him just sit there with nothing to eat? God, no! Sarah laughed even harder, the sound cutting through me like a plasma torch through steel. Can you imagine? He'd probably order the cheapest thing on the menu and still somehow make it awkward for everyone. No, I think it'll be hilarious to watch him sit there with an empty plate while we all eat. Let him figure it out on his own. Sarah, that's genuinely cruel, Jessica said, but she was laughing too, clearly entertained rather than disapproving. "That's exactly the point," my wife replied, her voice bright with genuine amusement. "I want to see how long he'll just sit there taking it before he says something or leaves. It'll be absolutely hilarious to watch him squirm. Besides, Brandon thinks it's funny too." Brandon, her best guy friend from work. The same Brandon who'd been texting her constantly for months, who she claimed was just a friend, despite the late-night conversations and the way she lit up whenever his name appeared on her phone. The same Brandon who somehow always needed her advice about his dating life at 10 o'clock at night. "And after the dinner?" Jessica asked, her voice carrying a note of conspiracy that made my stomach drop. "Brandon and I are hitting Club 7. Finally got him to agree to come out dancing with me. Been trying to get him out for months. He's been so stressed about his promotion at work, and I told him a night out would be exactly what he needs." I stood there completely frozen in my own hallway, listening to the woman I'd married plot my deliberate humiliation like it was some kind of entertaining game for her and another man's amusement. The conversation continued for another few minutes, with them discussing what time they'd leave for the club, what Sarah should wear, whether Brandon would finally make a move on her after months of what she called obvious flirting. Something inside me shifted fundamentally at that moment. Not broke exactly, because I'd been breaking for months. This was different. This was absolute clarity cutting through years of fog and self-doubt. Like the moment when you're working on a complex welding project and suddenly understand exactly how all the pieces fit together. So I spent the next 2 weeks preparing methodically. Not emotionally, because I was way past that point. Practically. The same way I approach a complex welding project that requires multiple phases and precise timing. You don't just grab your torch and start burning metal. You plan every cut, every joint, every sequence of operations. You gather your materials, check your equipment, and make sure you understand exactly what needs to happen and in what order. I made careful phone calls during lunch breaks, sitting in my truck in the shipyard parking lot where nobody could overhear. I sent encrypted emails from coffee shops across town, places where Sarah would never think to look for me. I scheduled meetings with people who specialized in making problems disappear cleanly and legally. The first step was securing my finances. I moved money around, separating joint funds into individual accounts at different banks. 20 years of working with heavy machinery had taught me the importance of having backup systems and safety protocols. You never rely on a single point of failure, whether you're working on a ship's hull or protecting your life savings from someone who's been systematically stealing from you. I secured important documents like our marriage certificate, tax returns, bank statements, and credit card records. I made copies of everything and stored them in 3 different locations, including a safety deposit box that Sarah didn't know existed. Documentation is everything in both welding and legal proceedings. You need to be able to prove exactly what you did, when you did it, and why it was necessary. I consulted with an attorney named Michael Shaw, who came highly recommended by a union buddy who'd gone through a brutal divorce 2 years earlier. Michael was sharp, experienced with working-class divorces, and understood exactly what I needed. He didn't judge me for driving a truck with 200,000 miles or wearing work clothes to his office. He treated me with the same respect he'd show a client in a $1,000 suit. Michael was the one who explained the legal implications of what I'd discovered about Sarah's spending patterns. He helped me gather evidence properly, making sure everything I collected would be admissible in court if it came to that. I printed out credit card statements I had access to as a joint account holder, documented every instance of financial deception I could find, and created a timeline that showed the pattern of her behavior over the past 2 years. I also discovered something else during my investigation that made my blood run cold. Sarah had been submitting fraudulent expense reports at the dealership, claiming personal dinners as client meetings, shopping trips as business travel, and spa treatments as team-building events. I'd accidentally seen some of these reports months earlier when she'd left her laptop open on the kitchen table while she was in the shower. At the time, I'd assumed I was misunderstanding something about how her job worked. But now, looking at the evidence more carefully, the fraud was undeniable. She was systematically stealing from her employer, using the same contempt for truth and other people's money that she'd been showing me. Personal shopping trips to designer stores reported as client consultation visits. Expensive lunches with her girlfriends claimed as prospective buyer meetings. Spa days and salon visits listed as team-building exercises with the sales staff. I'd been holding on to that information for months, hoping desperately that I'd never need to use it. Hope dies slowly at first, then all at once in a rush when you're standing in your own hallway listening to your wife plan your public humiliation for another man's entertainment. During those 2 weeks of preparation, I also started documenting everything about our marriage in a detailed timeline. Every instance of her contempt, every major purchase she'd made without consulting me, every time she'd lied about where money went. I wrote it all down with dates, amounts, and as much specific detail as I could remember. It was therapeutic in a way, seeing it all laid out in black and white. The pattern was undeniable, like looking at x-rays that finally show you exactly where the break is. I made arrangements for the night of the dinner, called the repo company that handled the BMW lease, and scheduled them to pick up the car from our driveway at exactly 8:30, right when I knew we'd be sitting down to eat at the Ironworks. Timing was crucial. I didn't want to cause a scene at the restaurant where it might look like I was the one being vindictive. I wanted the car gone quietly, professionally, while she was busy humiliating me in front of her friends. I also prepared the email to her boss at Premier Motors, complete with documentation of her expense fraud. Screenshots, receipts, bank statements, everything organized in neat folders by date and category. A complete paper trail of systematic theft going back over 2 years. I scheduled it to send automatically at 9 p.m., right when I calculated she'd be finishing her expensive dinner and getting ready to head to Club 7 with Brandon. The hardest part was acting normal during those 2 weeks, coming home from work every day and pretending I still cared about saving our marriage. Listening to her talk about the birthday dinner plans without letting on that I knew exactly what she had in store for me. Watching her text constantly with Brandon while pretending I believed her, claims that he was just a friend who needed relationship advice. But I managed it. 20 years of working in dangerous conditions had taught me how to stay calm under pressure, how to focus on the task at hand, even when everything around you is going wrong. Whether you're working underwater with limited air supply or sitting across from your wife while she plans your destruction, the key is keeping your breathing steady and your mind clear. The night of the birthday dinner finally arrived. I put on my best shirt, the one Sarah had bought me for Christmas 2 years earlier, back when she still pretended to care about my appearance. I drove my reliable old truck downtown to the Ironworks, parking 3 blocks away to give myself an easy exit road. As I walked toward the restaurant, I felt the same calm focus that comes over me when I'm about to start a particularly challenging weld. Everything was in place. The timing was perfect. All that was left was the execution. The Ironworks was one of those places where the silence itself costs money, and every clink of silverware sounds like an announcement of your net worth. The kind of place with leather-bound menus and waiters who speak in hushed tones like they're in church. Dark wood paneling, dim lighting, and the subtle scent of money that comes from serving people who've never had to worry about making rent. Sarah and her crew were already seated at a large round table near the windows when I arrived right on time at 7:30. Her sister Jessica was there in something that probably cost more than I made in a week, all sharp angles and practiced judgment. Her friend Amanda from the dealership, who sold luxury cars by day and posted carefully curated lifestyle content by night. Teresa, the finance manager, who treated every conversation like a negotiation she intended to win. And Brandon Cole. Brandon was exactly what I'd expected from months of hearing Sarah's voice change whenever she mentioned his name. Tall, perfectly styled hair, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my monthly take-home pay. He had that smooth, practiced charm that comes from selling expensive things to people who don't really need them. The kind of guy who'd never worked with his hands a day in his life, but somehow thought that made him superior to people who did. I sat down quietly at the end of the table, the seat furthest from Sarah and closest to Brandon. Nobody acknowledged my arrival, not a hello, not a nod, nothing. I might as well have been invisible, which was probably exactly what Sarah had told them to expect. Just ignored the blue-collar husband who somehow managed to show up, despite not really being invited. When the waiter came around with menus, Sarah and her friends ordered without hesitation. Premium steaks, expensive wine by the bottle, appetizers that cost more than most people's weekly grocery bill. The kind of meal that costs $300 a person before you even think about tip. They ordered like people who'd never had to check their bank balance before making a purchase. The waiter worked his way around the table efficiently, writing down each order with practiced professionalism. When he finally got to me, Sarah waved him off dismissively without even looking in my direction. "He's fine," she said coolly, taking a sip of her wine. "Just water for him. He's not really eating tonight." Brandon smirked and leaned back in his chair, clearly enjoying the show. "Shoulda packed snacks, buddy," he said with mock sympathy, his voice dripping with condescension. The waiter glanced at me with a look of professional understanding, like this wasn't the first time he'd witnessed this exact scenario. I just nodded calmly and sat back, checking my watch. 8:45, right on schedule. For the next hour and a half, I watched these people eat and drink, while I sat there with an empty plate and a water glass nobody bothered to refill. They made jokes about me right to my face, like I wasn't even there. Jessica wondered aloud how Sarah managed to put up with someone so unmotivated. Amanda analyzed my clothes like I was some kind of fascinating specimen she'd discovered under a microscope. Teresa gave a whole speech about how successful people need to cut dead weight from their lives, looking directly at me while she said it. Each comment was designed to humiliate, to make me feel small and worthless in front of this group of people who measured human worth by the price of your shoes and the age of your truck. Brandon was the worst. He kept making comments about real men and actual success, clearly trying to impress Sarah while putting me down. Every time he spoke, she laughed a little too hard and touched his arm a little too long. The chemistry between them was obvious to everyone at the table, including me. They weren't even trying to hide it anymore. "You know what I love about Brandon?" Sarah said loudly enough for the whole table to hear, her hand resting on his forearm. "He actually has ambition. He's not content to just do the same job for 20 years and call it a career." "Some people are just built different," Brandon replied, straightening his tie. "Some people want to achieve something meaningful with their lives. Others are happy to just maintain." I just smiled politely through it all and said, "Good to know. Really good to know." But what none of them knew, what they couldn't possibly have known as they laughed and ate and planned their little clubbing adventure, was that while we were sitting there in that overpriced restaurant, 3 things were happening simultaneously across town. First, all of Sarah's personal credit cards were being systematically declined. I'd spent most of the afternoon calling credit card companies, explaining that I was separating from my spouse and needed to be removed, as an authorized user immediately. Without my income and credit score backing them up, and with Sarah's actual credit score in the basement, thanks to her secret spending habits, the accounts were automatically frozen pending review. Second, that white BMW SUV she loved so much was being repossessed from our driveway at that exact moment. The lease was entirely in my name because her credit was too destroyed to qualify on her own. I'd called the leasing company that morning and terminated the agreement effective immediately. Repo companies don't care about birthday celebrations or special occasions. They show up with a tow truck, hook up the car, and drive away. Third, an email was being sent to her boss at Premier Motors with detailed documentation of her expense fraud, receipts clearly showing that her supposed client dinners were actually these exact social gatherings with her personal friends. Credit card charges at personal retailers claimed as business expenses. A complete paper trail of systematic theft going back over 2 years, organized in neat folders by date and amount. Around 9 o'clock, as they were finishing their meals and Brandon was suggesting they head to Club 7 for dancing, I calmly asked the waiter for the check. The confusion on their faces was absolutely priceless. "What are you doing?" Sarah asked sharply, her voice cutting through the expensive atmosphere like a plasma torch through thin metal. "I'd like to see the full itemized bill," I said clearly, looking directly at the waiter and ignoring Sarah completely. "For the entire table, please." The waiter nodded professionally and they disappeared toward the kitchen. Brandon was staring at me suspiciously now, his smooth confidence starting to crack around the edges. Jessica looked annoyed that I'd interrupted her story about some drama at the dealership. Amanda had her phone out, probably getting ready to document whatever was about to happen for her social media followers. When the waiter returned with the leather portfolio, he placed it directly in front of me with both hands. I opened it slowly, making sure everyone could see exactly what I was doing. The total came to $3,247, 5 premium steaks, multiple bottles of wine that cost more than my truck payment, appetizers that could feed a family of 4, and desserts they hadn't even eaten yet, but had already been added to the bill. I pulled out my credit card and placed it carefully on top of the check. Then I stood up slowly from the table, feeling the weight of every eye in the restaurant on our little drama. "I'm going to pay this bill," I said calmly, looking directly at Sarah while everyone else watched in stunned silence. "The full amount, including a generous tip for excellent service. But before the waiter runs this card, I need everyone at this table to understand something very clearly." Sarah's face was turning red with embarrassment and rage. "Austin, sit down right now. You're embarrassing yourself in front of everyone." "No," I said quietly but firmly. "I'm really not." I pulled out my phone and opened the screenshot I'd taken 2 weeks earlier. Sarah's text messages filled the screen, crystal clear for everyone to see. Her words about how pathetic I was, how hilarious it would be to watch me sit there with nothing, how Brandon thought the whole thing was funny, how they were planning to go clubbing together after humiliating me. "He actually thinks he's invited for real," I read aloud from the screen. "It'll be hilarious to watch him sit there with an empty plate while we all eat. Brandon thinks it's funny too. We're hitting Club 7 after." The silence after I read those messages was absolutely profound and heavy. Every nearby table had gone completely quiet. Other diners watching our drama unfold like dinner theater they'd paid to see. The waiters had stopped moving. Even the kitchen noise seemed to fade into nothing. Sarah's face went completely white, then flushed deep red with humiliation. Jessica looked like she'd been physically slapped across the face. Brandon's smooth confidence evaporated instantly, replaced by the kind of panic that comes from being exposed as exactly the kind of person you are. The rest of the table just sat frozen, forks suspended in midair. "So, yes," I continued calmly, putting my phone back in my pocket. "I'll pay for your birthday dinner and your little pre-clubbing celebration with Brandon. Consider it my final contribution to this marriage and whatever this is you two have going on. But we're done here. Completely and totally done." I looked at the waiter, who was standing there awkwardly trying to process what he'd just witnessed. "Run the card, please, and add $500 to the tip. You've earned it dealing with this table tonight." Then I turned and walked out of the ironworks, out into the cool October evening that felt like freedom itself. Behind me, I could hear Sarah calling my name desperately, her voice high and panicked. Could hear Brandon's voice rising in confusion, probably trying to distance himself from the whole situation, now that it had blown up in their faces. Could hear the entire table erupting in complete chaos and shouting. But I was already gone, walking steadily toward my truck, parked 3 blocks away, breathing in the crisp autumn air that tasted like possibility and new beginnings. The next few weeks were a controlled demolition of our shared life together. The divorce papers were filed the very next morning by Michael Shaw at 9 o'clock sharp. Sarah was served at Jessica's apartment, where she'd been staying since I'd changed the locks on our house. According to Michael's process server, she started screaming the moment she saw the official papers. Sarah didn't go down without putting up a massive fight on social media. She posted long emotional captions about how I'd financially abused her for years, how I'd cut her off without warning, how I'd abandoned her when she needed me most. She created a fundraising page asking for donations to help her escape financial abuse, claiming I'd left her completely destitute. Within 24 hours, she'd raised over $3,000 from strangers who believed her story without question. Her Instagram post got thousands of likes and hundreds of comments calling me a monster and telling her she deserves so much better. But the truth started coming out anyway. The investigation into her expense fraud at Premier Motors revealed she'd stolen over $28,000 from her employer over 2 years. The district attorney filed felony charges within a week, embezzlement and filing false documents. She was arrested on a Tuesday morning at Jessica's apartment. The local news picked up the story because our restaurant confrontation had already gone viral online, with videos getting millions of views across multiple platforms. The criminal trial ended with a guilty verdict on all counts: 2 years probation, 300 hours of community service, and full restitution to Premier Motors. The felony conviction would follow her forever, making it nearly impossible to work in sales or any position involving financial responsibility. I moved into a small apartment in Riverside Gardens, nothing fancy but completely mine. I adopted a dog named Cooper from the shelter, a loyal golden retriever mix who'd been abandoned by his previous owners. Cooper greets me every day like I'm the best thing that's ever happened to him, Pure, unconditional love without judgment or demands. A few months later, I met Emily at a local bookstore. She's a fourth-grade teacher who loves hiking and doesn't own a single designer handbag. We talked about philosophy and terrible dad jokes. Our first coffee date lasted 3 hours. For the first time in years, I'm building something real on a foundation of honesty and genuine respect. And honestly, that's everything I needed all along.